Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Oriane, and in today's video I'm introducing a new series all about the CPA exam and how to become a CPA. The whole CPA exam process has been something on my heart for a very long time. It's one of the reasons why I even created this YouTube channel in the first place. If you go back to my very first video that was posted a little over a year ago, it was about me talking about the CPA. I think I just had passed my third exam and I was studying for the fourth one, and I was like, you know what, I want to get out there, I want to talk to people about my process and everything. And you know, with life and work and everything, I just never had the time to do that. But now I'm just ready to get it out there. I'm ready to share my tips, I'm ready to share my personal experience, I'm ready to share my strengths, my weaknesses, and you know, really everything that, you know, I wish maybe I would have known before, you know, as I was taking the CPA exam, and maybe that's gonna help somebody out there and make their life a little more bearable and easier as they go through the process, or as they think about going through the process. So, you know, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so let's say it's your first time here and you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. So CPA stands for Certified Public Accountant. So what's a CPA? A CPA is an accounting professional who has met the educational requirements, the experience requirements, and has passed the uniform CPA examination. So it has to be someone that went through all of this process, and then you can just call yourself a CPA. For example, I am a CPA. I can sign CPA next to my name. I can say Oriane Dalmeida, CPA. Why? Because I have met the educational requirements. So I went to school, I got a degree, and I got a certain number of accounting credit. I have experience requirement because I've been working in, you know, the accounting profession. I've been working in internal audit, and now I'm in public accounting. And then the third criteria is to pass the uniform CPA examination, which is, you know, it includes 4 different exams. So you have the financial exam, you have the audit exam, you have the tax exam, and then you have like an overall business exam. Once you pass all 4 of them, then you have to take like an ethics questionnaire kind of exam, but this is a little more low-key. And then once you pass everything, then you become a CPA. So the CPA examination includes 4 exams. I took the FAR first, so the financial accounting and reporting. I took it first. It's all about like financial concepts. In my opinion, it's the hardest exam. I took that first. Then I took regulation. It's all about taxes. Then I took the auditing and attestation, which is all about audit, how to audit financial statements. And then the last one is the business environment and concept, or BEC. In my opinion, that's the easiest, and one of the reasons why I took it last as well. And it's all about just, you know, common knowledge, business concepts that people are just supposed to know. And yeah, so that's how I took the exams. And then when I was done with that, I took the ethics examination. That's at the very end. That's something that you can do at home. And you know, I was able to become a CPA. So each exam, it's 4 hour long, and you have to take it separately, of course. So just do your research on that. I'm not gonna talk about the technical aspect of, you know, how you apply for it, and then how you know, get approval to pass for it, and then the structure of the exam. I'm not really gonna talk about that, because if you're interested into taking the CPA exam, you know, you should already kind of know about it. I'm more gonna talk about the studying process and how to pass the exam. This video and this series of video is to really talk about, you know, how you can pass it, because they are very, very hard exams. And I really want to help people out there, you know, find the best way to study, the strengths and weaknesses, or at least my strengths and weaknesses in each exam, the topics that I thought were difficult. I'm gonna go back into, you know, when I took the exam, like things that I was uncomfortable about. So I'm gonna talk about this more into details when I talk about each specific exam. But the reason again why I took FAR first, it's because to me it's the hardest. It has the most content. And so to pass the CP exam, you have 18 months. You have 18 months from when you take your first exam. So let's say you take your first exam in March, then you have 18 months from March to pass all of the exams, or then you have to start over. So let's say you passed the first exam in March, you passed another one in September, then you passed one in October, then the last exam, it's taking you, a long time to pass them. For some reason you're failing it, or for some reason you don't have time to study it, and the 18 months from your first exam is over, everything that you've passed is cancelled. You have to take everything again. So you have 18 months to pass all 4 exams from the day that you take your first exam. So if you take your first exam in March, you have 18 months to pass everything from the March. So I took FAR first because, as I said before, it has the most content, and I wanted to take as much time as I needed to study it to make sure that I pass it. Because my reasoning is, if you study for FAR, or if you want to take FAR after your 18 months clock has already started, to me, it was just an additional pressure that I didn't want to deal with. So I studied for FAR when my 18-month clock hadn't started yet. So studied for FAR, then when I was ready to take it, I scheduled the exam and I took FAR, and then from the day that I took FAR, that's when my 18-month clock started. So again, this is just tactics that I think are helpful to know before you even, start thinking about, the order that you want to take your exams. Then regulation second, because to me, that was an area where I was also very uncomfortable. So in my head, right, I'm like, I have 18 months. How do I make the best out of it? And the way I wanted to do it is to take the hardest, from the hardest to the easiest. Because I was like, at the beginning, I'm going to be very, excited. I'm going to have so much passion. I'll be very determined. So maybe it would be better if I take all of the hard exams first, and then I leave the easiest ones, according to me and to my experience, I leave the easiest ones for the end, because I would have less pressure. My time is already, being counted. It was just gonna make my life easier. So I took FAR, then reg, which is taxes. Again, to me, it was something that I wasn't comfortable with, so I took my time to study for it. Then I took audit. Audit, I was a little more comfortable with because I've always worked in the audit field, more into internal audits, but auditing and attestation is more external audit, but a lot of the concepts I was familiar with them already, so it wasn't that difficult. And auditing, it was a lot of memorization, so it wasn't a lot of calculation or formulas or things like that. Like reg, so tax was a lot of formulas, a lot of numbers, a lot of things that you needed to remember. FAR was a lot of calculation, you need to know how to do problems, solve long math problems. Auditing was more about read financial statements and understand what they mean in order to, arrive to certain conclusions. Like a word in this paragraph and a word in this paragraph means two very different things. So auditing was a little more, you need to think about it. You need to be have critical thinking and things like that. So I took that auditing as my third exam, and then I took BEC, which is common business concepts, economics, the law of supply and demand, and things like that. So that was my order, and I was able to pass everything at my first try. I took my first exam in March 2019, so I started studying for it in January 2019. It took me 14 to 15 weeks because FAR has 10 chapters, so I did or 10 modules. So I did one module per week, and then I gave myself like 3 or 4 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks of like reviewing everything and then taking the exam. So it took me like 13 weeks, 12 or 13 weeks of preparation before I took FAR in March. And then I took my last exam in October 2019. So, you know, overall it took me 10 months, 11 months to pass all of the exams, and thankfully I was able to pass them the first try. And I was able to do that while studying, while working full-time, and while traveling full-time. So 2019 was a big year of traveling for me for work. I went to Asia, I went to Eastern Europe, and you know, all of my audits travels, you know, they were over long periods of time. They were like 5 weeks, 4 weeks each. All of my assignments, and you know, I want to talk about the way that you balance life and studying and work and also traveling to cool places and wanting to explore. So I want to talk about all of that separately. So for each exam, you know, in my future videos, I'll be talking about, okay, FAR, what was my methodology? What were the chapters that were hard for me? What was easier? What are the type of things that maybe you should spend more time studying for? You know, reg, what was hard? What are the formulas that I think you need to memorize and things like that? So I'm gonna have like a series of video to address each specific exam, my personal experience with them, and just overall things that you need to keep in mind. So if that's something that you're interested in, please stay tuned for that. And I'm too far in to let it go. I want people to respect me, and I want people to treat me differently. I'm always tired. I lack sleep. One day I will sign Oriane Dalmeida, CPA.